Hello, it's that time of the month again. The Mediate podcast is back with our 80s edition of the Music Mate series. As the year is 1989, it means that we just have 2 episodes left. There was one album from the 80s that I just couldn't live without reviewing with you guys, so we are still doing a final episode after this one before we wrap up. Looking forward to that one very much. But since this is technically the last year of the 80s, we have a bit of a special episode for you today. There were just 2 great albums that I had the difficulty of choosing between, so I decided to pick them both. And we'll consider this episode, I guess, some kind of a double episode. I'm really excited to get into these ones. But, as usual, honourable mentions first. There were a few albums that I wanted to give a shout out to, but since this is already going to be a bit of a longer episode, then I'll restrict it to just one. At the moment on the series, we've done some really quintessential British alternative music from the 80s, probably most notably The Queen is Dead, but equally important and even more so in terms of paving the way for the current younger generation of that time. I had to mention the psychedelic eponymous debut album by the Stone Roses. The Stone Roses were a Manchester born and bred group, as a lot of great bands from that era were. They really helped set the rave culture and the Manchester scene of the early 90s with songs that were both very trippy, but also had this really kind of danceable quality to them at the same time, which is kind of a unique blend. And for me, on this particular album, there isn't a song that demonstrates that better than Fool's Gold, which is the final track on it. It has this really hazy atmosphere and a lot of these very cool musical grooves that really just make you want to get up and move about. It's quite a fantastic song. And not even just in terms of the Manchester scene, but even in Britpop, which was kind of more of a mid-90s genre that was about, this band really helped influence that as well. Kind of just to pick one band out, Oasis. Everyone always says that they were trying to sound like the Beatles, and they really weren't. They were a poor man's Stone Roses. The similarities are definitely there if you listen to both. So yeah. That's that down. Let's move on to the main attraction today. So the first album of 2 that we're reviewing is definitely a personal favourite of mine, one that was quite important to my teenage years, that I listened to a lot, and by a band that really helped shape my music taste. And this is probably the closest album to my heart that we've reviewed so far. It's called Doolittle. It's the second album by Bostonian alternative and post-punk band The Pixies. It was released on April 17th by their record label 4AD, with a track listing consisting of 15 songs, and at just a little under 40 minutes in total. Most of the songs on the album are very punchy and have this very rampant, chaotic energy about them. Taking on inspiration from a range of different sources, I would say that it's a bit denser instrumentally than how it might appear at first, especially with some of the songs more in the second half. But I definitely want to get your thoughts on Doolittle as well, you guys, because I've had this conversation with others before, and I'll open it up to you. Do you think that this is an album that's very layered and has a lot of substance, or do you think that it's just a pretty standard, nothing special rock album, a dime a dozen? I really want to get your thoughts on that.
It's quite interesting that you put it that way, Ethan, because I think my sort of arc of my opinion with this album was definitely that it started off where the first couple listens I didn't really feel much of an impact from it, and I was sort of thinking like, I was interested to hear what other people said, because I couldn't really imagine what sort of was like the standout thing about the album that people really liked. But then after honestly, after the fact that we gave it we were going to record earlier and we gave it a 2-week break and then we came back to it. After that, me coming back to it, I was like, hang on, there's something going on here. Hold up, is this Writing Fire? And on those sort of later listens, I definitely picked up that there's much more of a layered sort of textured quality to the music than I really appreciated the first time around.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, they sound so unique in their own thing, with, I don't know, just sort of their own energy, that, I don't know, it kind of naturally separates them from just being this being just a generic rock album. I don't know, they have a unique sound to them almost.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't describe this as generic by any means. I think Johnny's got it spot on in terms of talking about how unique and interesting the sound is. I think for me, it's impressive that in just under 40 minutes, you get so many tracks with so many kind of ideas thrown out there. And like personally, it is a little bit hit and miss. Not everything works. I think there are some fantastic songs. I think there are some that I could not hum for you at all. I couldn't tell you what the song was at all, and some that actively I didn't enjoy. But I think I always appreciate a bit of a swing, and I would say this album is that.
Yeah, we've mentioned the fact that it's kind of around that 40-minute mark, and there are 15 songs on it, and it does kind of flick through a lot of them really, really quickly, and I think that helps have it. I think that helps it having some like this real thrilling pace about it. I know that you said, Harry, that there are some songs that really just don't work for you at all, but for me, this album just doesn't have any downtime. Before you know it, the song that you're currently listening to, it's over. It was enjoyable, and you're already on to the next one. It just doesn't hang around, and they're all very, very concise. A lot of these songs, which is kind of different to a lot of other bands from this sort of era that I do like, that are more interested in, like, I would guess lengthy. I would call them lengthy soundscapes and just very, very dense tracks. But even though you have said that you think there's a lot of layers going on here, I would add to that I think the Pixies, relative to a lot of other bands, are very straightforward a lot of the time, and that's a quality about their music I really appreciate.
It's interesting, Harry. You said that there are some songs that don't hit for you. I think I kind of noticed that as well, and I think it's partially due to the fact that quite a few of them, although they're short, they have quite repetitive vocals. They do that a lot, where the song is like more than 50% of the song will be the same line. And like when it will do that like back to back in like different songs, and like it's good that they're short if that's what they're going for, but that is part of me. There's like a little bit of like my brain is kind of melting in those little bits.
I think I watched a really good video essay on this album once. I don't want to steal too much from that video, but I'm fairly certain they recorded this quite quickly. As in like the turnaround time of it. These aren't songs that they spent years writing, and I think at times that shows in what you said, Tony. There'll be an idea, and then they'll kind of repeat that idea for like another minute, and then you'll be on to the next. And I think it's kind of about how many of those work for you. There is some really good stuff here, though. I don't want to be down on this album too much.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a song that you don't like, at least it's over soon. Right?
That is true.
They're only going to be sort of 2-3 minutes. I couldn't say what the longest song is off the top of my head, but I would guess that it's probably Here Comes Your Man or Monkey Gone to Heaven.
Longest song is
the two best songs?
13 Baby is the longest song on this album.
I guess number 13 Baby does have quite a long outro instrumental section, which does add a couple of minutes to the track. Actually, I always forget that there's just a second half of it that doesn't have any vocals. So yeah, that makes sense. Andrew, I think I cut you off earlier. What were you going to say?
Well, I was basically just going to say not to tip my hand too early, but I think this album is an album filled with a lot of basically perfect songs. That is, in and of itself, also basically perfect. So I will not be criticising this album very strongly, and most of what I have to say about it is just saying it's real good. Actually, it's very good. I like it. I like all of the bits of it. It's good, and I liked it. I don't know how insightful I'm going to be. Really, I've made some notes, but a lot of it is just this song is perfect. This song is also perfect, and I liked it.
I think in general they're good at coming up with hooks, and then with the fast pace of it all, they're just chucking out hooks.
The secret of the Pixies really is that they're very, very good at making pop songs, but they're like an indie grunge band, which is the sort of music I like. So they are the perfect combination of the music I like anyway, wrapped up in these perfect, neat little, very memorable, very like compelling little pop songs that aren't actually pop songs because they're Pixies songs, but they're also, the thing about them having these incredibly short songs, I believe I did a little bit of like looking up about this, and there was some pressure from, I can't remember if it was their producer or someone else, but they were saying basically, we could add an extra verse or so to these songs, we could make them a bit longer, and Frank Black or Black Francis or whatever he goes by now, retorted with I can't remember if it was Buddy Holly's first album or his greatest hits or whatever, but like handed that over, and all the songs on that album are like 2 minutes, 3 minutes long at most. I was just like, no, we're going to keep them short, we're going to keep them good, and that's what we're doing. And it worked.
I like that you mentioned that, Andrew, because while I do see what you're saying about how a lot of these songs are kind of pop tracks disguised as you called it, indie grunge, I would say that the one song on the album that I could see kind of charting pretty well is Here Comes Your Man. But that's also probably one of my least favourite songs on the album, just because it's like, it's a song that's almost too charming. Like, I prefer it when the Pixies have these songs like Mr. Greaves and Crackety Jones that are a bit more like hillbilly and a bit more like
they are at their best
manic.
When there is a mania, where there is some threat, there is like this lurking doom or something. Here Comes Your Man is it's nice, you don't feel unsettled listening to it. Black Francis isn't like shrieking at you, it's just your man is coming, ain't that good?
I hate to have really basic taste, but I think that's exactly the reason I really like that song and don't like some of the other songs. I think it depending on how tame Black Francis is feeling.
It's not that I don't like it. I do like the song.
Yeah, I think a lot of my enjoyment comes from like how he's decided to kind of like deliver the vocals. I tend to like some of the ones where he's kind of screaming a little bit more. Don't work for me as well. Although Monkey Gone to Heaven, he does kind of at the end, but I guess it's kind of a bit of a build-up, so that one does work a bit more for me.
When he gets into his weird numerology stuff. There's just something wonderful about screeching, slowly building up in terms of like, if man is 5, and then the devil is 6, and then just shrieking, then God is 7 over and over again, as if it is the thing in the world you are most certain of. And I'm like, good for you, Black Francis.
It's like about that, though, where you go on a bit of a journey, whereas I think songs where he starts at 100, I'm like, well, there's almost nowhere to go from here. Other than he just stays at 100 for the whole song. But I do love the way that song kind of builds up.
Yeah, I mean, I love the start of Monkey Gone to Heaven, just like the image of this terrifying Lovecraftian underwater god killed by that most mundane of things, sludge and sewage from New York and New Jersey. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, what a wonderful two things to combine: Lovecraftian horror and then the inevitable like capitalist destruction of the world through pollution. And it's like, no, Lovecraft has nothing on this.
Maybe we're the real horrors.
I think that his lyrics kind of complement his singing style quite well, just because the lyrics are very at times witty and funny, and kind of go from 0 to 100 very quickly in ways that you don't expect. But then there's also something really surreal about the imagery that he describes at time. I think Wave of Mutilation has quite a lot of that. It's one of my favourite songs on the album. And I think when you...
Well, they set out almost a mission statement with Debaser, the first song, that like he wants to grow up to be a debaser. And he's singing about Un Chien Andalou, the surrealist film by Salvador Dali, and I forget who the other guy was.
Buñuel?
Buñuel?
I don't know.
I may have said his name wrong. But yeah, no, they start off by being like, yeah, no, we're people that like weird shit. We're going to get strange. We're going to make you uncomfortable. We're going to do weird imagery.
Going back to Debaser, because I wanted to talk about that one, because that one is easily like top 3 songs on the album, and to have that as the opening track, just to have that, just every time I sit down and listen to this album start to finish, which is pretty often. I mean, it's at least once a month for, I don't know, however many years at this point. But whenever I hear that do 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 do, like I'm just already in the zone listening to this album. And that kind of brings me on to a part of the Pixies' music that I think is just kind of inseparable, which is Kim Deal's, her vocals, but her bass playing in particular, I think is so key to so many of the melodies, especially a lot of the verses. Like, because, I mean, typically with this era of rock music, a lot of the bands were kind of well known for having this dynamic of quiet verses and loud choruses. I think the Pixies certainly had that, and a lot of those verses on these tracks, like on Tame, for instance, are kind of vacant, and they're very bass oriented with Frances just singing, and I feel like her riffs on the bass do so much of the heavy lifting at times to grab you and make you enjoy the music. Debaser is definitely an example of that the whole way through. I think she's a fantastic member of the band. Funnily enough, we've actually reviewed her music already on this podcast, because she's the front woman of the Breeders, which we did back in the 90s series. And, well, they're very
back in the
bands,
90s,
aren't they? Sorry, yeah, back when we did the 90s series.
Yeah, I think for me, the more of her that's in the song in terms of kind of singing, the more I tend to like the song. It's not like a note perfect formula, but I find myself, the more she's singing, the kind of more pleasant I'm finding the song. And then Black Francis will come in screaming, and I'll like it a little bit less.
I mean, they work well opposite each other in terms of the vocals.
They do, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree, because the sound of their voices are so different. They complement each other well. I think one of the best examples of this on the whole album is also in Tame. It's that part kind of towards the end where they're both grunting, he's grunting, and the way he grunts is so animalistic and primal, and it sounds horrible. And then she's kind of on top, and I wouldn't describe the way that she sounds as pleasant, but like just the sound of it, it's so different, and because of that, they both really resonate very well with each other. And I think all the way throughout this album, when she comes in on backing vocals, which is primarily what she does, there's almost something kind of ethereal about the way that she sings. I'm thinking of specifically a song like Debaser, those kind of like Debaser, like the way they're kind of hanging back in the background. They almost feel like they're operating on a different plane of existence to the one that Francis is singing on. And I love the way that they contrast with each other. I think they're a fantastic duo together on vocals.
Yeah, on the topic of the bass line, I definitely noticed it, especially in like the last one, Gouge Away. I thought, damn, this bass line's really good. And also it gave me, maybe this is like a person who only likes two types of music, level of commentary. But it gave me like Garbage vibes, as in the band Garbage, which I really like. And I was like, I wonder if that, because when you said it's from someone that we had done before, I was like, oh, was I right? Did I guess it? No, it's the Breeders. Oh well, I'll get them next time.
Yeah, Gouge Away is such a fucking good final track as well. Can I just say? I mean, I don't know what you guys think of it, but I know Tony's a fan because he's just said that, but I think it's great.
I have it down on my notes as another perfect song. So yeah, I am in agreement. It is a very good song.
Yeah, it's my dad's favourite. I think both on the album and I think by the band in general as well, which is which is another reason why I like it so much and why it appeals to me so much.
It's got the lyrics make reference to the tale of Samson and Delilah, but it's also, I don't know, more broadly about just a very I don't know, very interesting stuff. Like the idea of being, having parts of yourself torn away. But it's something. This is something I notice in this album. They do sort of lyrically quite a lot. They have songs that sound. If you listen to the lyrics, it sounds like it's describing something horrible, but the way it is being presented is almost like no, it's not that bad. Like this, like Gouge Away, for example, he is inviting someone to gouge away parts of him. He seems, at the worst, he is like resigned to it. It might even be something he wants. He's like seeking some sort of oblivion. It's similar to Wave of Mutilation, where it's like, it sounds an awful lot like someone is about to commit suicide by driving into the ocean, but then in the lyrics he assures you, they think I'm dead, but I've sailed away on a wave of mutilation. It's like, oh yeah, I could do that. I could sail away on a wave of mutilation. That sounds like a nice holiday. And then you're like, I'm pretty sure he's driving into the sea to kill himself, though. That's something they do. Is like they dress up, they make horrible things seem nice, and I don't know if I have any more of a point than that, but it's an interesting, weirdly compelling thing, and yeah, I found that it has resonated with me consistently through my life.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that sort of take on the lyrics. I think I quite liked, like, especially in Number 13 Baby, which I'm considering lying and saying is my favourite song to seem more interesting than saying it's Here Comes Your Man. Because I quite liked the sort of, like, the very, like, raunchy vibe I got from the lyrics in that song. And also the idea of someone having a number tattooed on them reminded me of the Phantom Troop from Hunt x Hunter, which will have numbers tattooed on them. And I was like, hell yeah. That's it.
Is there a reason why you didn't mention what body part it was tattooed on?
So we don't get demonetized. All of our YouTube bucks will go down the drain.
Yeah, we're really raking it in otherwise, aren't we?
So yeah, anyone else like Number 13 Baby?
Yeah, it's a great song. But a bit like Andrew, every song on this album is a great song to me. I think there's only really a couple that probably don't quite stick the landing. Like La La Love You is a little bit kind of gets stale quite quickly for me. Trying to think, there's another one. I'll tell you what, there is one song that isn't one of my favourites, but I definitely appreciate what it's going for in terms of atmosphere and mood, and it's Silver. I think it's the penultimate track.
Yeah.
And this song for me is so like, because when I listen to the Pixies, as I kind of mentioned Harry alluded to this video that I made outside of this podcast about this album. I was actually reviewing a few albums, but this was one of them. And I mentioned that as I'm listening to the Pixies, what I kind of picture in my head is this noisy, kind of like almost a scummy bar somewhere in Mexico. And there's this naked woman that's dancing in one corner, and a monkey hanging off of a light in another corner, and there's a mariachi band somewhere else that just won't stop playing music. And I feel like Silver is kind of different to that, in that when I listen to that one, it's more like I imagine this long desert stretching out in front of me, and there's vultures circling around, and the heat is just beating down on me. Like it has such an almost spaghetti western feel to it, listening to it. And this is kind of what I was talking about at the start of the episode when people I've spoken to about Doolittle say, oh, it's kind of not very special. It's just your sort of average kind of late 80s, early 90s alt rock album. And I always think, no, there is more beneath this. It is a little bit more varied than you might give it credit for. And I think Silver, while it isn't one of the hits off the album, is definitely really unique and interesting in that way. And I'm glad that it exists on here, even if, again, it's not very long. I do think it adds something to the track listing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely got those Western vibes, and it was kind of the song that sort of made me realise, like, hang on, I should turn up my attention span and regrow it so that I can listen to this a little bit more intensely, because it does have that very like textured and like you get that sense of like something that has been weathered by the desert, just from the quality of the sound.
Yeah, it's the only song on the album that Kim Deal has a writing credit on. So she wrote this one with Frank Black, whereas he wrote all the rest of the songs on the album. So that is one reason it might stand out from some of the others.
It definitely stands out.
Yes, I do like how I don't know. It's mournful and slow, and it feels kind of like folksy and weird, and I don't know. For some reason I imagine people singing it round campfires.
Yes, it's the kind of drum beat, kind of ceremonial vibe it gives off, and it is a real shame it's not the final song, because then I could pull out my catchphrase. But alas, Gouge Away is after it, so I can't.
I definitely got like this sort of similar vibes as well as from Monkey Gone to Heaven, of like this like sort of like languid sense of, I don't know, not like sad overtly, but kind of, you know, like solemn, which is quite interesting.
One of the things I really like about Monkey Gone to Heaven, it's just a small little nuance about it, is those plucked violin strings that are used in the song, and I think sometimes they're not plucked; they're actually played with a bow. But for an album that is like, I don't know, 99% just guitars, a bass, and a drum kit, it is nice that for a couple of the songs they decided to be a bit more, I guess, a bit more innovative with stuff like that, because I think it's a really, really nice touch, and I think something like that makes the song stand out a little bit more as well.
Andrew, what's your favourite song on the album?
Ooh. Which is your favourite child?
Yes. I don't know. It's a toss-up. It is a toss-up between... I'll try to narrow it down to a more manageable 3. I love the song Hey.
We've not even talked about Hey.
Really,
Hey's brilliant, yeah.
But I'd say it's Hey, it's Gouge Away, and it's Wave of Mutilation, I think, are my top 3. And then asking me to pick a favourite out of those, I couldn't. And if you ask me this question again tomorrow, I might give you 3 different songs.
Yeah, I've probably had a different favourite for each day of the week.
Yeah. Curiously enough, after listening to this album, the one I had stuck in my head was Crackety Jones, which is not my favourite song in this album, but it is the one I had stuck in my head after listening to it, because, I don't know, it's just manic and very catchy.
Yeah, I definitely agree that a lot, I mean, even Crackety Jones, but also like Monkey Gone to Heaven, to bring it back up again, is this, like, those hooks, even when I don't like them, you know, even when I first listened to this and I was like, not sold on the album, I was like, not sold about this. And then I went away and I was like, Monkey's Gone to Heaven it was like playing in my dreams. I was like, oh no, I'm the monkey. Yep. I'm in heaven. Where did my gun go?
Yeah, I think what I sort of had, so, I mean, I'd listened to a lot of Pixies from it just being on in Andrew's room. But it'd been a good while since I'd like sat down and listened to them again. And when I like first started this album, and it started with Debaser, which is like a song I know I like, but I think just at that moment I just wasn't quite in the mood for it. So it's just like I don't think I actually have the energy for Pixies at the moment. So I was like, oh no, am I going to have like controversial takes when it comes around to actually reviewing this? But you know, I didn't have to immediately listen to it then. And then when I came back and there's more of it, it was like, yeah, no, Pixies. And that's kind of where I've been since. Yeah, so I could... Yeah, because I don't really know now what my first time listening to them... Like, I don't remember that as a distinct moment, really.
Well, Johnny, I can tell you right now that I have memories of us talking about this band when we were in GCSE maths together. So you've known about them since as long as that, at the very least, and probably before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean, I discovered them at university. And I imagine I unless you got it from Ethan, I imagine I brought it back to you from Sheffield.
Yeah, that would have been listening to them in your room.
Probably while I was playing Minecraft.
Yeah. So yeah, that probably would be a bit before GCSEs.
Another thing I wanted to mention about this album, and again I touched a little bit on it in my video, because I feel like I'm always approaching these albums from a historical point of view, because I really, really like music history, especially with the genres and the bands and the kind of eras that I'm interested in. And what I think's interesting about Doolittle is, because we're now in 1989, music isn't quite obviously 80s anymore. It feels it's not like it's 1984 and we're reviewing Purple Rain, which is an album that sounds like the best parts of the 80s in a nutshell. And I remember when we did the very first episode of the 90s series where we reviewed Violator, the Depeche Mode album, and we all talked about how it felt like a bit of a hangover from the 80s, but was also embracing some kind of sea change. And not just in style, but also in the way that it was technologically ahead of the 80s and had just had a way, way more modern sound. And with it being caught between two eras, it felt like, I don't know, lightning in a bottle in a way. And Doolittle is a bit like that, but kind of the opposite, where it's an album from the 80s that sounds, it almost sounds like a bit ahead of its time, especially with the boom of underground rock that kind of went just straight into the mainstream in sort of 91, 92, especially in the States, with what Nirvana was doing. I love hearing, I love talking about these kinds of bands that I know influenced these other bands that influenced all these other bands, and you kind of piece things together as you're going along, and it's just like OK Computer as well, right? I know I reference this album every fucking episode that we do, but there's always a good reason for it. And that album it wasn't quite right at the end of the 90s, but because it was so futuristic and had just had this really stark depiction of where our world was going, it was something that felt like it belonged more in the 2000s. It was just so ahead of its time. And I think Doolittle, while it's not as, I don't know, it's not quite the same in those themes, it still functions in the same way. And I think I just appreciate that fact about the album the more and more I listen to it every year. It just doesn't sound like it's from the 80s at all. A little bit like the Joshua Tree, it's really, really special.
I mean, Pixies are incredibly influential. Like, David Bowie covered one of their songs. Like, that's, I don't know. He doesn't just do that for anyone, Or didn't just do that for anyone. Like Kurt Cobain said of, I think, Smells Like Teen Spirit, he was basically trying to do a Pixies song. He said something as well, like he had, when, I think it was when, I can't remember if it was Surfer Rosa or Doolittle came out, but when one of the Pixies albums came out, he was saying, like, I had these demos of all these songs that sounded exactly like Pixies that I was too scared to play to anyone. And, Pixies music being out meant that he could be like, yeah, no, I should do something with these. There's an audience for a sound like this. But yeah, no. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, there was one when I was doing my my research for this. I saw some reviewer had said something of the of Pixies, basically saying they made the past sound like them. Instead of, they make stuff that sounds like it's from the past. They've taken stuff, from the past and made it sound so new that it makes the past sound like it was copying the Pixies, which I think is, I don't know, certainly an interesting way of putting it. I feel like they are, I don't know, they're good. The Pixies are good. This album is good. I said I wouldn't have very incisive criticism.
It's funny, these bands, they're like, obviously, they've done, like a number of kind of really great songs. But similar to Journey, I feel like we'll look back in like 20, 30 years time, and there will be like one song that they're pretty much remembered by. And I guess it's kind of sad that you can have an artist or band with so much output, so many kind of creative ideas, and ultimately the thing they're going to be remembered for is going to be the thing that was in a movie, or for some reason like broke through on the radio.
I think it's just the nature of the beast, right? There's so many different musicians that have their different sounds that you can't. There's not enough space in culture to remember all of the different things they do. Crackety Jones will just be one of those hidden gems that's there for the real Minecraft heads that are ready to pilfer the depths of history.
Imagine that final scene of Fight Club to Crackety Jones.
It wouldn't quite hit the same way, would it?
Buildings collapse.
I get what you're saying, Tony, but at the same time, I think it is just down to taste as well. Like what Harry was mentioning a second ago about how, these bands that we review, they get remembered for one song, right? I always feel like, I think I probably get this more with the bands that I really, really like, really, really love, where I just feel like the most famous song by them doesn't entirely represent what I think of them as the band, or it's not the kind of song that I think represents their identity the best. And I won't talk about this for very much because we're not here to review Joy Division, but I'm mentioning this because we're going to do them in a couple of in the next episode. The song that they're most famous for, to me, just doesn't sound like remotely like what I think of them as a band, and it annoys me a little bit that for a band that only ever recorded 2 studio albums, the amount of incredibly good songs they have, there's just so many, and so many of them are better than this one famous song that they're known for, and it frustrates me a little bit, and I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there who are as anal as me when it comes to this sort of thing, who also feel that same level of frustration. Like, it annoys me with this band. Like, everyone knows Where Is My Mind, but they don't know the deep cuts like Crackety Jones.
I think sorry, Harry, you go ahead.
Oh no, I guess this again. I'm going to have really boring taste on this episode, but like for me, when I listen to Where Is My Mind, or Here Comes Your Man, like the songs just sound like. I don't know, they just like touch something. We are like, this is like a perfect idea, perfectly executed. You've not put the whole of yourself in it. You could say that like if you're truly a fan of the band, you'd prefer the deeper cuts. But as a kind of more casual kind of or first time listener coming to it, I guess that kind of softer edge is probably like the main appeal, right? Like for me, I've listened to this and I've listened to Surfer Rosa, and there's probably like a handful of songs that I would like listen to again, and like sadly for you, I guess that they aren't like, they're almost the ones that represent the band the least. I guess that's my polite way of saying that I didn't love this album, but there were some songs that I guess will stay with me for a long time.
I was gonna say, like, a slightly cynical way of looking at it is the songs that become popular for like a band, or even just in general, are kind of like the lowest common denominator of what people like.
Thanks, Tony.
Because if some people might like Hey, I don't. Some people might like Silver, which I do, but we can all agree that Here Comes Your Man is good, and that's why that's the sort of force multiplier that makes it become what the band is known for, even though by majority is spending more of its like time on the album doing lots of different experimental things.
I mean, curiously enough, at least on Spotify, like Hey is in the top 3 of the songs on the album for most plays.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That does not surprise me. I know that Hey is one of the more popular songs by the band.
I can't remember the exact order it was, or even which the 3 songs were, but Hey was definitely one of the 3, to my surprise.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get what you're
checking it
saying. Yeah, if you could check now, that'd be good. I get what you're saying, Tony. I don't think your point is invalid at all by that being the case. I just think Hey is a bit more approachable than you give it credit for. I think it's a really well-packaged song, and it's not too out there. It's not too abrasive like some of the other songs on the album are, so I can completely see why it's well known. And it's got some great hooks in it as well. Like the verse, the lyrics, they're excellent.
The lyric, by the way, it's like one word, one line. I think if it had just been like, if Hey had been earlier in the album, it would have been a different one that I was like, fuck this song. It's just the fact that was the song that I noticed, like, they really do this gimmick a lot.
What do you not?
I didn't even dislike it really.
Hey has more lyrics than most of the other songs that just repeat the same lyric over and over again. There is more to it. It's.
And personally, I love all the lines about halls being in different places. As well. That's a great part of that song.
Yeah. But it's quite comfortably the second most listened song on the album. So Here Comes Your Man is top, 260 million, and then it's Hey, just shy of 200 million, and then you've got Debaser, 108 million, Monkey Goes to Heaven, 104 million. So like it's twice as listened to as Debaser and Monkey Goes to Heaven.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's kind of crazy because Monkey Goes to Heaven for me is feels like one of their biggest hits. It's the song that is the cover of this album, and I feel like I've heard before I listened to this album I'd heard that song like a number of times. I would have said that would have been one of the big hits of the album.
Now, Johnny, can you tell us how many streams Whereas My Mind has? Because that'll be that'll be like 5 or 6 times the amount I would have said than the second.
Billion.
Yeah, a billion.
Wow.
Sheesh.
So Here Comes Your Man has a quarter of the total that Whereas My Mind has.
That's the power of David Fincher.
It sure is. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
I think I'm happy to go to the final stage of the podcast.
Do you want to go first, Tony?
Oh no, I've got to put my money where my mouth is. Yeah, I'm happy to go. Happy to go first. I guess my biggest takeaway from this album is that I'm glad that we had that delay that meant that I had to go back to this, because I think my opinion of it did bump up quite a bit, and it's made me think, maybe, like, normally my approach to music is like, if I kind of like things that are more up-tempo and have a lot of impact, and for some reason, even though this album definitely starts strong with like Debaser and Tame, I feel like it didn't give me that impact that I was looking for until I sort of decided to start paying attention to it more, I guess. And I think I really sort of began to like appreciate that there's like a lot of different character to each of their songs, even though sometimes I'm like, okay, where's this going? And there's a lot of great hits. Number 13, Baby. I'm definitely new and interesting by saying that's the favourite one. Doesn't have 200 million streams, so got in before it was cool. And I got in before it was cool, like 30 years late to this band. And I think I'll give this a 7 out of 10.
Nice. Andrew, Johnny, do you guys want to go next?
Yeah, 10 out of 10, of course. It's damn near a perfect album. I'm not going to give it a 9. It's getting a 10.
Yeah, I'll also be given a 10. Just, yeah, a good album. Yeah, I don't think there's particularly a song I'd say I dislike on it, which is a good sign.
I think I'm pretty similar to Tony. I think I've listened to it 3 or 4 times, but I always found myself struggling to kind of really kind of lock in and engage. I think my first 2 listens would have been I kind of drift off a little bit, and maybe it's kind of my fault that I've not had that lock in moment like Tony did and like really paid attention to kind of some of the lyrical content. But yeah, it kind of washes over me a little bit, so I think I'll probably give it a 6.
If we had delayed our recording again, Harry would have given it a 7, I bet. Let's do it again. Let's cancel it. I'm deleting my file.
Oh, I know. My audio's corrupted.
I remembered that I hadn't even talked about something else about the band Star that I really, really like, which is the kind of oddball Spanish rock influence that's there with some of these strange flamenco style riffs and a lot of the lyrics being in Spanish. Maybe less so on this album, definitely more so on Surfer Rosa and Come On Pilgrim, which was their first ever EP. But yeah, no. Other than that, I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say about Doolittle. I just think it's pretty much, yeah, as the guy said, it's perfect. It's just really great, pure rock music, and it embodies so much of what I look for in the genre. Not being able, as in, not being afraid to get your hands dirty, and then embracing a sense of, I guess, imperfectionism or whatever you want to call it, just something that doesn't sound too pretty, too glamorous. I've thought that's always been something that's appealed to me about the bands that I really like. So yeah, no matter how grimy Doolittle is, I just think it's a perfect 10 for me, no question. Yeah, great album. So anyway, that's the end of part 1. We have one more album to do from 1989. So I guess we'll see you there.